Water cooling level performance, whisper quiet noise, and unparalleled aesthetics. Let me introduce you to the new DeepCool Assassin 4. DeepCool sponsored this video for me to check out their return to their Assassin series cooler, and this thing destroyed all of my expectations of just what I thought an air cooler was capable of. Because DeepCool's Assassin is back with refined aesthetics as well as killer performance. And then it has all of the small refinements that you would expect to see from a seasoned PC company like DeepCool that just make the assembly process, putting it into your system, such a breeze that you don't have to worry about anything. Like starting off with RAM clearance. You don't need to worry about that at all because it doesn't overhang on any of the RAM slots. You show off whatever RAM you want to have because the fan is actually going to be overhanging on the VRM of the motherboard. And I actually made a mistake when I first installed this because I thought this wasn't actually going to clear the VRM shroud that's on the motherboard, which some motherboards it may not. But DeepCool has thought of that by making it so that this exhaust fan that's over here can actually be repositioned to be above wherever that VRM shroud is. So if you have the clearance, you can keep it flat, but if you don't, you can also extend it to make sure that this CPU cooler is going to fit. Which this is a very large cooler, let's not be mistaken about it. It's 164 millimeters tall, so you need to make sure it'll actually fit in your chassis, but it's also 147 millimeters wide, which again might not work in every single PC build case, but if you're going for a high-end build, the Assassin 4 will fit right in. Because it's not just designed to look sleek, it's also designed for tons of performance. What you have packed into the Assassin 4 is 2 towers of heat sinks, 7 heat pipes, as well as a 140 mil fan and 120 mil fan, and it has an optional third fan bracket in case you want to expand it a little bit more. But the way it is now, it's designed for maximum performance and compatibility, with the fans having an efficient 3-phase 6-pole motor, which allows them to have low voltage, low power consumption, and they're also incredibly quiet. Compared to its predecessor, the Assassin 3, DeepCool saying that this Assassin 4 at its loudest is still quieter than the 3 was, but it also has a silent mode that allows you to drop the decibels even more. But on top of that, with the newly designed 120 mil and 140 mil FDB fans, you get a 25% increase in airflow and a 99% increase in static pressure, meaning these things are moving that hot air on your CPU both quickly and efficiently. And you might be wondering, where are all of these fans? Well, it's actually under this magnetic top cover right here, which has the DeepCool square mesh design on it. The fan slots in and out with the pull tabs, and you have the fan on the edge right over here. To install the CPU cooler is tremendously easy. DeepCool's included all the mounting accessories that you need for the standard LGA Intel sockets, as well as AM4 and AM5 on AMD's side. We have this cooling our Ryzen 9 7950X, and they give you this extra long magnetic screwdriver, which I have to admit is a nice touch that DeepCool thought of, because I've used other long screwdrivers like this included with other CPU coolers, and they don't tend to be magnetic, and when you're trying to get on down in there, you might drop the screw. Thankfully, the screws are included on the Assassin 4, so it's not needed here, but just being able to hold a screw like that makes these more versatile than just even installing the Assassin 4. And they also include their industrial DM9 thermal paste, and 1.5 grams of it as well, so you can use it for reapplications, and it makes sure that you get the best cooling possible out of this DeepCool setup. But once it's installed, it looks incredibly sleek, and we have it in this system, as I mentioned, with a 7950X, all housed in the DeepCool CH510 mesh digital, with 3 of the DeepCool FK120 fans up front, 64 gigs of G.Skill Ripjaw's S5 memory, a 2 terabyte Crucial P5 Plus SSD, a Yeston Sakura 7900 XTX, and a DeepCool PX 1000G power supply, getting it all up and running. But now let's talk about how this thing performs. So as mentioned, I have a 7950X in here, and at its peak, it can consume 225 watts of power, and I pit the Assassin 4 against DeepCool's LT520 liquid cooler 240 mil setup. And what I found was that either in quiet mode or in performance mode, the Assassin 4 got very, very close to where the LT520 sits in terms of cooling performance as well as overall performance when it comes to just letting the CPU go wild. So at default settings, the Cinebench scores between the quiet mode and the performance mode on the A4 were within about 1% of each other. And then moving on to the LT520, again, was about within 1% margin of difference. So the LT520 at stock settings settings will allow the 7950X go about 2% faster than it otherwise would have. But when you have it set to auto OC mode in AMD Ryzen Master software, we found that the performance delta was much smaller than that, with the LT520 only being 0.13% faster on the 7950X than the Assassin 4 in performance mode. But when you lock the CPU down to its 105 watt eco mode to make all things equal, the performance again is nearly identical, but here's where the temperature differences come in. Because when you're running the 7950X full tilt, AMD has designed these CPUs to run at 95 degrees Celsius no matter what, so you're getting the max performance. But when you lock it down to wattage consumption, that's where you get to see the temperature differences. So both performance modes of the Assassin 4 as well as the LT520 perform nearly identically in Cinebench, but the performance mode of the Assassin 4 let the 7950X be cooled to an average 46 degrees Celsius. In quiet mode, it was 48 degrees Celsius, and the LT520 came in at 47 degrees, so splitting the difference there. And that was over a 10-minute test showing that the average temperatures of the Assassin 4 can match a 240 ml liquid cooler. But the key difference comes in how quiet it can actually do that. The LT520, when it's going full tilt, is definitely noticeably louder than the Assassin 4. You'd see that the Assassin 4, when it's in quiet mode, is barely above ambient noise. Turning it on to performance mode adds a few decibels, but it's honestly not that noticeable, especially when you put the tempered glass side panel on and you can no longer hear that the fans are ramped up in this thing. It's incredible just how much performance you can get out of the Assassin 4 while it also stays quiet. It honestly lives up to its name. And the price point is incredible. Coming in at an MSRP of $99.99 puts it at an incredible price to performance level, and it also looks incredible as well. So big thanks to DeepCool for sponsoring today's video. Check out the Assassin 4 linked out in the video description. Get water cooling level performance, again with a sleek, refined package, also in a honestly whisper quiet setup.